Oops, my mic wasn't on. So I met somebody who I watched interact with Leighton Flowers and other people, and he's a dogged Calvinist. That's fine. The twitchy theologian, but he interacted with Leighton Flowers and Warren McGrew. I thought he did a pretty good job holding his position. I think his position's wrong, obviously, but he's been nice to me, and he doesn't take everything so seriously as some do. And start saying people who don't agree with him are lost and all this, which is just a bad move, by the way. I guess if you really believe that, that's fine. But I found it really interesting that he told me that what drew him into the faith was reading Ellen White. And then he subsequently became a Calvinist, and he's studying and involved in Calvinist church meetings and arguing for the Calvinist position. And so he ultimately did, isn't an Adventist. I am. And my story would be that I was born an Adventist. Both my parents are Adventist. Both of my parents' parents were Adventist. And so I'm hopelessly in a cult. And so I don't see myself changing. But when I sowed my oats and I came back, I decided I was going to try to listen to what other people say and see what they have to say about it. So I'm not like hopelessly in a cult. And I've spent the last 12 years engaging that purposefully. And at one point early on, when looking for something somebody was saying about Ellen White, who was claimed to be a prophet in the Adventist church, I was looking for a quote of her husband, whose name is James White. And in doing so, I came across the YouTube debates of James White, the modern Calvinist scholar. And I listened to him and I got drawn into his arguments. And a lot of them were similar to Advent. And let me tell you, he almost convinced me to become a Calvinist. And I almost bought it. I almost did. But I held I resisted. And God, the Holy Spirit, swooped in and kept me from being dragged kicking and screaming into Calvinism against my will. A lot of Calvinists will say, oh, but God made me I had to be a Calvinist. And I'm kind of, that's tongue in cheek. I'm joking. Like I would just say, let's not go there. I don't think God's making you be a Calvinist, but I know if you think God determined you to believe Calvinism, that I'll give it to you. God determined you. God determined that for you. If God determined me to be an Adventist, maybe he's going to burn me forever for it. I hope not, because I want to read something that strikes to me in Steps to Christ, which isn't my Bible or rule of faith or anything, but I was just reviewing, because that's a main sticking point for Calvinists. Like we're Wesleyan Adventists or Wesleyan, so we think you can lose your salvation. Some people think that's literally satanic. I think not keeping the commandments and saying Jesus did away with them, and it makes Jesus the Antichrist, to be honest, according to my reading of the overall picture of the scriptures. But if you think God needs us to believe in once saved, always saved, I think you're missing it. You're missing the point. But let me just read this. And this, for me, strikes at the heart of the difference between a Wesleyan and a Calvinist, and why I can't ever be a Calvinist. One of many reasons. I'll just tell you, to be honestly, because I think this makes way more sense. This notion about how we should see God in light of the plight of man. And I could give many biblical examples of this sort of thing, which is where this comes from, okay? But I'm just going to read this part of the first chapter of Ellen White's reading from a Wesleyan point of view, which I think is correct, ultimately, over limited atonement. God has bound our hearts to him by unnumbered tokens in heaven and in earth. Through the things of nature and the deepest and tenderest earthly ties that human hearts can know, he has sought to reveal himself to us. Yet these but imperfectly represent his love. Though all these evidences have been given, the enemy of good blinded the minds of men, so that they looked upon God with fear. They thought of him as severe and unforgiving. Satan led men to conceive of God as a being whose chief attribute is stern justice, one who is a severe judge, a harsh, exacting creditor. He pictured the Creator as a being who is watching with a jealous eye to discern the errors and mistakes of men, that he may visit judgment upon them. It was to remove this dark shadow, right, by revealing to the world the infinite love of God, that Jesus came to live among men. Jesus came from heaven to make manifest the Father. No man hath seen God at any time, but the only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. Neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. When one of the disciples made the request, show us the Father, Jesus answered, have I been with you so long, and yet has you not known me, Philip? He that has seen me has seen the Father. How do you say then, show us the Father? And so, to say that God keeps men from coming to him so that he can use that God purposed men for destruction to demonstrate his power is false. It will, the destruction of the wicked, and it will be a full destruction of the wicked, will be a demonstration of God's love and power when they're destroyed, yes. But they weren't made for that purpose. They were made in the image of God. And this is why free will matters. And so Jesus weeping over those who wouldn't come to him demonstrates this. Unless you think Jesus was pretending, or when Jesus said, whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble, causes one of these little ones to stumble. God doesn't cause everything, every aspect of the world and life. He's the cause of creation. He upholds everything in its existence, but he doesn't determine by necessity every act that happens in the world. That's why I'll never be a Calvinist, because that's not demonstrating the love of God exemplified in the example and life of Jesus we have recorded in the text. Jesus weeps over those who don't come to him. An enemy has done this. Stop distorting the love of God.